think he doesn't know either. And she shouts at Raven that the protagonist's help is necessary for the plan, and everyone here knows that. He puts his sword away. The protagonist, well, he deactivates his power. She lets out a sigh and says she's going to explain what the Harvest Day is. But he has to accept one thing before they begin. The protagonist, what? She says, this world is much bigger than you imagine. In fact, we're not from Earth. Whoa, super plot twist. What's going on? Oh, I get it now. The folks from Heritage came from a place far from here. She says their original planet was called Tyburn, a peaceful place where species lived in harmony, full of magic and nature. A peaceful planet, until the invasion of the Cranity. The big-toothed monsters were already glaring at the kids. The Urentia Empire fought back, but the threat of those monsters attacking everything alive in their path was something they couldn't stand against. Man, those portals opening up in the sky and everybody teleporting in. Because of those endless monsters warping in from anywhere, every region started to be invaded one by one, until one man appeared in that desperate world. His name? Liebersenstein. Hey, I remember that name, huh? The Earth scientist, damn. And also the creator of the system. What? Bro. The protagonist's like, wait, the system was someone's invention? She says yes, and that they were surprised at first. She explains, I told you, didn't I? How hard it is to learn a skill. Citizens of our planet barely became combat-ready mages after concentrating on magic for 10 years. But Lieber was different. He learned magic at an unbelievable pace and became the archmage of that place in 5 years. After that, he focused on research to make magic easier to learn and increase the number of people who could fight, so that anyone, even without knowledge or understanding of complex formulas or even without mana, could protect the Empire. Because of his research, ability orbs, and even the system were created. His plan was a success. Even though the system wasn't finished, it supported basic offensive skills, and people started to enroll and learned magic using skill balls. As the system got more refined, people became able to use even higher tier spells. And then, everyone started to hope again. Hope that peace would return to their world, and that they could defeat the Cranity. The long war dragged on and on, until the day the system was complete, and Lieber began the massacre. Holy crap, a plot twist inside the plot twist. Even now, she doesn't know why. All the citizens were killed. Even the descendants of the elemental sword or dragons. No one could stop him. He just kept killing, 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 killing. And just like that, the Empire fell in a week. Bro, what? That was the Harvest Day? Now we're screwed, huh? The protagonist. Wait, the entire Empire killed by one man in a week? She says she still can't forget that day and asks Raven if he can explain more, since she didn't see Lieber that often. He says some details are missing, but yeah, that story is true. The only survivors who made it out alive were the 3 of them, following this world's calendar that happened in 1995. Raven goes, you know what happened here 5 years later, right? In the year 2000, there was a catastrophe. Boom, and the system appeared on Earth. So the system is anchoring itself into this planet, and soon the Harvest Day is going to happen again. Man, guys, things are getting really dangerous now. Phew, after all that, we see our waifu girl over there exhausted, saying she can't do it, she's too weak. I agree, but she goes, get up, girl, we've got work to do. 1 week earlier, bam, she summoned the huge blue orb. That's the original size of the fox sphere she uses. Whoa, that's right, both of them use the same one. She says, I'm gonna throw this. Take it. Boom, explosion. Smoke rising everywhere. What'd you think? It's similar to your mana sphere, right? It has a bigger form, but no damage. Leveling up only increases the size. Even if you reach level 100, it'll still be the same thing. And she says you only used it the way the system told you to use it, didn't you? She makes a new little ball, saying she needs to control and compress the mana. After all, her ability must be something like Mana Master, right? And she explains the system is a tool, because during the catastrophe, people used their skills just fine, even without any system at all. Well, she already launched it, straight with that drill shot, Arizona-style wild. It's you who uses the ability, not the system. Grabbing the target, she says it should be at most that size, because she doesn't have as much level as the fox girl. Her compressed power needs to be even smaller. Hagen stands up saying she gets it now. But here's the thing. She's been doing this for a week and today's the evaluation. She's tired. She can't throw another orb. But the fox girl teases her, saying, so it looks like you're planning to rest now, huh? On the day of the test, you don't want to practice anymore. Tomorrow's the weekend you're gonna rest, while protagonist is about to reach rank A. Then she pokes at her again, saying she thinks Hayon is too greedy, wanting a protagonist. She licks her lips, saying protagonist's super sexy. Maybe she wants him too. Hayon stands up angry. Fine, I'll take protagonist for myself. Bring me more targets, bring all of them. Alright then, well, at least love's easy to use. Back to protagonist's conversation, she asks if he's heard about the Harvest Day at the Academy. He says yeah, and that someone called the Master is brainwashing a bunch of people to help with it. The 3 start talking, what can they do to stop it? Raven says they can't do anything, or they'll become a target of the system. Robert says they need to start a public debate. Protagonist says, we're not doing anything directly to the academy. My sister is infected with the virus and I want the elixir. The dwarf says, wait, so you're gonna let that happen to all the students? He says if it's for the elixir, he doesn't care. Then the guy makes an offer. If we can get you the elixir, will you help? Protagonist confused. Raven says he'll take care of the elixir problem and even make Protagonist his apprentice. Man, gonna teach him the sword-grabbing technique. You know what that means. But our guy's confused. What do you mean? Apprentice? Raven. Exactly that. The kind of apprentice who does anything I tell him to do. But this will help you reach your goal of getting stronger. Protagonist. Bruh, are you crazy? You were just trying to kill me a minute ago. Raven explains he thought Protagonist was with the system and apologizes, and says it's not such a bad deal for Protagonist, since he needs to be as strong as possible to get the elixir. Plus, if they solve this problem, they'll be able to stop the harvest day on Earth together. They're in the same boat, and Raven says after fighting the clone, he realized that Protagonist still needs to get stronger. What does our boy think? He just stands there thinking, imagining his little sister, bedridden and messed up. Okay, nothing to think about really. If you get me an elixir, I'll be your dog. Raven, don't want a dog, just an apprentice. All right, fine. Scene switches to an old man panting and a lady saying, don't let him get away. Trap him in the escape route. It's the fool, the old guy from Tron, saying that damn sword hunter said he let him go, but then he contacted the FBI. At least he managed to save the important documents about the DRP and Elisa. Talking to the bracelet, he asks, Elisa, how many people around me? She, 10. No, wait, 5, 20? I don't know. The old man realizes the bracelet is busted and Elisa's acting dumb. The soldier says it's the last building. The girl says if you see the old man, shoot to kill. He's hiding, panicking. Elisa on the bracelet says she senses another person approaching, or maybe she's just wrong, who knows. But the poor guy collapses against a wall, exhausted from all the running. But then the ground starts trembling. What's going on? They look up. A meteor shower is raining down on the building. We know who has that power. Look, there's already a soldier buddy of hers dragging himself through the fireman. She pulls out the walkie-talkie, calls for backup, but then something pierces through her. A guy shows up saying, Trevor, I heard you were here. The old man's in shock, but he already knew. It's him, the master of High Song. I'm here to save you, don't be surprised. Let's get out of here and handle business. Scene shifts to someone talking to the Oracle, saying they gave Shin Haisung the location exactly as she asked. The Oracle says you must have just gotten there now. The blue-haired guy says the sacrifice was necessary. The Oracle asks, don't we want to know why you were ordered to give Trevor's location to Shin Haisung, and why the FBI agents had to die? He just replies, I'm not curious about anything. I obey the Oracle. And now he's off to the next location. The Oracle warns him, be careful. The catacomb is a dangerous place. Man, I'm starting to think this Oracle is connected to that curse system and Harvest Day and all that mess. Scene shifts. Raven's beginning Protagonist training. What he's going to learn is the basic fast sword technique. Next time, they'll need a mana circuit, but that's for later. First, relax your arm. Protagonist, all right, chill man. And what about the elixir? I'm only becoming your apprentice after you give me that, remember? Raven, elixir, I'll get it for you soon, kid. But isn't it better for you to level up first and gain some experience for when you get it? Protagonist, nah man, that's not what we agreed on. Raven's like, come on, I'm a rank S hunter. Not just anyone gets to learn from me. Protagonist, I'm a clone user. Hold up, let me bring you the best student in the world. Behold the perfect apprentice, ta-da. Go ahead. Number 7, enjoy your lesson. I'm heading back to the academy. Raven, not too bad I guess. All right, let's go apprentice. First class, fast sword, listen closely. Back at the academy, the professor is bringing in the skill orbs that Protagonist told him to bring. Today, everyone's going to learn a new ability. Our guy's going to pick up his, but his mind's somewhere else. So Arya, Raven, and Hubert aren't even from Earth. They're aliens. Their planet was destroyed by that harvest day. Lieberzinstein, the guy who created the system. But why? What does he want? While activating the orb, freeze skill was created. Protagonist's thinking something. If the system controls the skills, then what happens if on harvest day the system stops working? Looking at his hand, he thinks, I learned basic mana movement and meditation. So what's really inside these orbs? Are they changing properties? Or how do they teach magic? Can I use my abilities without the system? And then he sits there. Go fire. Ice. Nothing. I said fire, you damn fireball. Still nothing. Did the system say stop? Suddenly, a green interface appears out of nowhere. Jung Sang-woo go to the catacomb. Whoa, Prota. Man, the world's really ending. What the hell is that? He's sitting down like, where the hell is this catacomb? The system. Confirm if you understood. He's confused, doesn't know what that was. The professor keeps teaching like nothing happened. Says until now they practice in the training room, but this time it'll be different. They'll have a fieldwork mission against dungeon monsters. It's an international event, and the designated dungeon is the catacomb. Yikes, a huge open field and underground dungeon. But wait, why did the system warn him first? Now I'm confused. The director's in his office all chill. Knock on the door, bam, kicked open. I'm back. Grab this guy. It was you again, wasn't it? You trying to die? President, what are you talking about, man? I'm talking about this catacomb mission. You made this happen, didn't you? The guy says, wait, I don't even know what you're talking about. Fieldwork dungeons are randomly selected around the world. There's no way he could have messed with that. Protagonist, wait, so you didn't mess with my status window? The president's like, what? What happened to your system? Protagonist, wasn't it the academy? When he checks, the system says, I want to stop Harvest Day. Help me. Bro, that's way too much plot twist at once. Now there's a good system and a bad system. Next chapter starts with our girl practicing her power. She asks the Kibi, so, what do you think, girl? She replies, looks good. You passed. She's all happy and gives her a big hug. The girl says, just keep the power like that and you're not letting Sangwoo escape again. Dang, she didn't even try to hide it. Just said bye and left. She looks back at the target, surprised at how much power she compressed. No matter someone's level, it won't be able to stop that ability. It's gonna be a bullet, basically. Scene changes to protagonist talking to green guy. You hearing me? Protagonist, who are you, dude? System says, our conversation is limited. Answering your question takes explanation. If that happens, the system will detect me. I just want to stop Harvest Day. That's all I can say. Protagonist a bit shaken. How do I trust a system? He's heard of Harvest Day and knows the system was made by Lieber. So how can he trust it? But then the system drops the biggest argument. First of all, I'm green. Protagonist, bro, you messing with me? That's your argument? System says, think about it. If I was on their side, why would I contact you? All I'd have to do is tell the master about the heritage members. Someone knocks on the door. System says it has to leave. That's enough for today. But before going, it says, go to the catacomb. Collect the 7 deadly sins. Only you can stop Harvest Day. And poof, it disappears. Protagonist still sitting there, unsure who to trust. He also got the offer from Heritage to get the elixir, but they never said how they're gonna get it. He doesn't know who to trust anymore. Then Heian busts into his room screaming they're going overseas. Protagonist, where were you, crazy? She says she was doing special training. But seeing Protagonist all down on the bed, she asks what's wrong. He tries to dodge. You can't just sit on my bed like that. She pushes. Is there something you can't tell me? He says, why aren't you worried? You know this academy's not normal. Now they want to ship us out abroad for this catacomb thing. She says, of course I don't trust the academy. I trust you, Sangwoo. What a sweetheart. Protagonist, you're right. Thinking, I don't need to worry about who to trust. She's all blushing. If you're worried, you can talk to. I can trust myself. Heh, that's right. Don't need anyone else. She's devastated. He's like, I'm strong for real. Who's even gonna betray me, huh? Wild. Steam cuts to the Harvest Master checking data on a South Korean player, rank B, already averaging stat 70. Worried, he says he can't just sit still. A crazy woman appears. What you're thinking is correct. But then a cross appears in the room. Ho ho, who do we have here? Wait, George Lucas, a jumper? Dude's involved in this whole thing now? He walks in. I heard you've been causing trouble. The other guy activates his power. You here to kill me? George says, depends on your answer. Dude's like, it's about the catacomb, isn't it? He claims he didn't pick it, didn't even know catacomb was an option. But George doesn't buy it, says there's no way he didn't know. Guy explains that dungeon experiences at academies are mid-level events. Other people handle that stuff. George Lucas just giving that little stare. He says he understands the guy is worried, but he better not look at him like that. And relax, the 7 sins will remain safe. Oh, now I think George Lucas is up to something bad. The other guy says no one's getting anything from there because the maze builder is in that place. But hey, you guys don't know there's a clone dude, on the way to get it all. Scene shifts to the catacomb deep underground. There's a flesh head munching bones to cast fireball. The academy squad arrives to hunt. The background NPCs, poor guys, they've never even hunted. They're like, oh my god, this is my first time that monster is huge. Heian, that monster is disgusting and horrifying. Protagonist, it's a replica of a golem. And now he's thinking they won't let him hunt. What's he getting at? Oh no, another angry girl, another one from Guild YOLO. Bro, I want to join Guild YOLO too. This one's the manager, Kim Suna. Protagonist gives her a wave and asks, what are you doing here, woman? She says it's a part-time gig. The academy's huge and there weren't enough teachers, so they hired some hunters above rank C. Then she asks, and you? Protagonist, I'm a student, so protect me, please. She laughs in his face. There's no way I'm protecting you, bro. This place doesn't even need a guide. But Protagonist presses a bit. These guys in front fighting. They're all hired hunters. The students are just watching. So he asks, why's that? Kim Suna, The academy requested it that way. She doesn't really know the reason. Maybe because there are too many students, so it's hard to protect them all. Anyway, if protagonist wants to sneak off, she'll pretend she didn't see anything. Oh, and she'll help protect the students. Protagonist, only if you split the paycheck, girl. Hey, and who is she? Why are you grinning so much while talking to her? Protagonist, don't give me that face. She's just the YOLO manager, nothing major. While they're having their little rom-com moment, somewhere else in the dungeon, someone is staring at a big orb saying, "There are too many people here, and they're too grouped together. This can't continue. I can't avoid this anymore." This is the owner of the catacomb, the labyrinth builder. Protagonist feels something, spidey sense tingling. He grabs Heian's waist. Ground starts shaking, and the hunters yell for everyone to regroup. But the ground blows up right next to them. A massive pit opens. Kim Seona, everyone fall back now. Protagonist picks up Arigato saying, "Don't worry, it's nothing." Then Green System appears and says, "Down there, protagonist, I already knew." He shoves Heian aside. "You go ahead," jumps in. But he warns Green System, "If this is a trap, I'll kill you." System, understood. Protagonist, "Then I'll do what you say. But after this, you're gonna explain everything to me." Midair, it stops feeling like a fall, almost like the world is holding him up. He feels warm and soft, like a comfy hug. System says, "You idiot, you're buried." All right. Beneath a pile of bodies and rubble, protagonist doesn't even know which way is up. He manages to move, maybe down, maybe sideways. But the stuff covering him begins to lift. And who's under there? Shin Jun-young. Protagonist, what the hell? Why are you here? Jun-young, isn't it obvious? I'm not giving up on the elixir. Protagonist, but why down here? Jun-young, I couldn't run. My stamina is trash. Prota's face. Okay, fair. But Jun-young warns. Other students fell down here too. Protagonist realizes this destruction must have happened in multiple areas, and this place has a lot of paths. Shin Jun-young says that from what he's seen, it seems to be some kind of labyrinth, and since they fell into the deepest part, nobody really knows where this place leads. Protagonist asks about Shin's teleport ability, but he says unfortunately it's still on cooldown. He notices protagonist is clearly thinking of exploring and warns him not to go alone. He has no idea what kinds of monsters show up in this place. And he's right without even noticing. A giant cockroach-faced beast pops up next to them and gets stomped with the king of the stomps straight to the face and goes flying. Our guy says he will be exploring this place and he doesn't have time to be babysitting people. But if Ju-young's feeling confident, he can come along. Ju-young's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'll head back." Protagonist, "Okay then, good decision." But he enters one portal and comes out of another right next to it. What the hell? What's he doing? Shin's confused. "I don't know, man. Something in here is messing with my teleport." Protagonist, "Didn't even know that was possible." Shin explains some locations have anti-teleport enchantments as a security measure. Protagonist says that at least his dimensional portal works normally. Shin replies it's because protagonist's portal uses fixed coordinates. Protagonist brings out his clones, tells Shin to be careful now that he's stuck without teleport. Elsewhere in the labyrinth, the girl who tried to stab protagonist with a butcher knife is trembling, and there's this ponytailed guy, a contracted hunter, rank C, Ba Chiolman, trying to calm the group down. They can't contact anyone and no signal, phones don't work. Chiolman knows at least some of these people have basic training, but they're so terrified they'll be useless if a monster shows up. Protagonist's off punching another monster, complaining that they keep reviving. And weirdly, these monsters are way stronger than the ones above. At that moment, Chiolman finds protagonist, sees him hunting, introduces himself, and everyone gets fired up. Now they've got Shin Jun-young and Sangwoo with them. But the monsters don't stop reviving. Protagonist tells his boys to shred everything. They draw their blades, full-on Tramontina squad. The group's still terrified. Chiolman asks if protagonist's seen anyone else. But protagonist says they're the first. Chiolman mentions they can't contact anyone above. That gives protagonist an idea. He opens a dimensional space and talks to Heian. Even though she can't go in, they can still talk. She was crying 1 second, and the next she's yelling, "Why'd you throw yourself in there like that, huh?" Someone tries to go into protagonist's portal, but he explains, "Unfortunately, you guys can't go in or out of my portal. Only I can." He asks Heian how things are up there. She says they're still checking how many people fell. Protagonist says they found Chiolman's group, and if they know where they were last, they might be able to figure out where everyone landed. He explains, "Teleport skills won't work down here due to interference. I'll need all my clones, so stay safe up there." She tells him to be careful too. Shin asks, "So what are you gonna do? Just wait for rescue?" Protagonist, "Nope, I'll leave a clone here, but I've got somewhere else to be." He walks back to talk to Chiolman. "Hey, Mr. Chiolman, Wait, where's everyone?" Protagonist, "Huh? I didn't even hear any fighting." He tells Shin to use that ability he used to locate protagonist. Shin activates it. No one. Nothing. Within 3 kilometers. Protagonist, "What the hell? I thought teleport didn't work here. Shin was about to say something, but suddenly, boom, monsters all around them. Protagonist starts to realize the whole labyrinth is shifting. Its structure and dimensions are changing, and elsewhere, Raven is still there teaching sword techniques. He's teaching a technique from the Stormbearer, a slash that cuts the target with a vacuum space controlling the wind. You listening? The clone. Yeah, I'm listening. But he's just sitting there munching food. Raven's already pissed. He's a first-rate rank as professor, and the clone's just messing around. He grumbles. Man, if he at least feels the tremor in the air, I'll call it a success. The sword form is tricky. It's not about using your arm, it's all in the wrist. And then it happens. The kid swings. Wham! An actual vacuum slash forms. At this exact moment, Raven was teaching the technique to one of our boys' clones. He did the whole explanation saying it was going to be very difficult, but obviously he came in 1 second, executed it perfectly. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, the brawl was happening everywhere. Obviously, the poor side characters weren't helping much. After killing countless skeletons, a little window pops up for Sang-woo, saying that if he didn't kill the creator of this place, the monsters wouldn't stop. Manu calls the guys and appears in the background, saying it's time to take a look at who made this place. In a room with a bunch of shaking cubicles, there's Manu, a girl with her back turned and a bow on her head, holding a skull and saying that this Sang-woo reminds her of a certain Marcel. Oh, it's a crazy old lady saying that, you know, our boy is as strong as he was, but all people had a limit that was imposed on them. Meanwhile, our boy is still there killing more and more skeletons. Yeah, I don't know where all that blood is coming from, but alright. The problem is obviously that he's already been there for 3 hours, and it's going to take a lot longer to get rid of all of that and be able to advance to the next room. He's trying to think of some possible solution when a friend behind him says that if they had sacred power, they could burn the skeletons and maybe it wouldn't come back. The friend asks if he wants a prayer, and our boy wonders if he's actually trying to go straight to heaven instead. But looking at his sword, he wonders about this burning business. He asks if the clones can make fire right, and one of them nods with a little flame. So he then asks for his sword to be bathed in that same flame. Back with Raven, he's wanting to know how the student did that. The student answers that he just copied what he did. However, his fist was wrecked. Raven is impressed. At this pace, he would soon advance to level 3 of the technique. He knew the boy's vision was good, but just the fact that he could execute it already showed that he had excellent physical control. If he could train the boy, he would become the blade that would bring down Liver. And so he tells the boy to sit down because he's going to teach him about the mana mechanism. Back in the dungeon, our boy is there celebrating with his sword, saying that this is what he calls a sacred blade. The friend, on the other hand, is devastated, saying that soon our boy is going to be throwing fire everywhere because it seems like he can do everything. However, Sang-woo just turns around, tells him to be careful, and slashes the chest of one of the golems. The creature starts agonizing and melting while the other clones kind of intensify the fire. With that, the entire monster is burned in flames, and Sang-woo with his potato face says to call it whatever you want, but it was working as well as a sacred fire. Suddenly, someone approaches from behind and asks if by chance they are hunters. They answer yes, and the guy says he was doing some sightseeing and needs help to get out of there. Clearly, the guy didn't even try to lie properly. And Sang-woo, not being kind at all, also didn't care. He just told him to follow that path there and he would find the exit. But man, I think the guy is going to try the dumbest trick in the world. He pretended to tie the boy's shoelace. Or actually, he really tied it, saying it's good to be cautious. He says the boy is doing a great job and that there's not much left until the truth is revealed. And with that, he gets up and tells him to be careful, while walking away murmuring that everything is going according to the Oracle's will. Nothing peculiar, right? Obviously, that's what Sang-woo is thinking. Suddenly, Sang-woo hears the voice of the rest of the group. Looks like the telepathy guy arrived and now they are able to communicate. He immediately explains that he's in a place that seems to be periodically modified and people are transported to a random area. Besides that, they had no idea where Cheolmin's group was. Obviously, people want to know what they are going to do if the area is changing, how they are going to be rescued. Sang-woo just says that they would start making a map of that place. In Vera's room, she's seeing that the group is starting to split up, and she says that it's normal for people to act like that. When things start going wrong, they separate to try to find a way out. However, it was useless, since the place constantly changed. Any sense of direction would be worthless there. Watching the clones, she says it's going to be ironic seeing how much they are going to fail. But suddenly, the scope is rising there and her expression changes. One of the clones enters a room with some bars and walls, saying that it's the first time he's gotten there and that the name will be a 3. It was about 500 meters from the first place where they appeared, and they had already passed through there. Another clone gives the name B3 to the place and says it's near I2 and far from a 2. Basically, the clones keep getting teleported, and each one keeps creating a map and giving information about how the place is constructed. The friend wants to know what they are going to do with that, because he explains that eventually, when they have all the information, they'll be able to reach each other much faster and maybe find the exit from that. The guy thinks it's impossible for him to achieve something like that, but Sang-woo says it would be impossible for him, but not for the clones, obviously. Then one of the clones says they found another group of survivors from the academy. He passes the information along with the coordinates, and a while later, the group really is being rescued. Everyone joins up all happy, while the clone there is exhausted from running back and forth. The old lady, on the other hand, is scratching the table and screaming to the skies in rage. Sometime later, he had already managed to make a perfect map of the whole region, and he is sure that the teleportation that happens randomly is some kind of ability from someone. And considering the design of that place, whoever it is was probably right at the center. And if he tells everyone to group up, it's because now it's time to finally resolve this. However, the friend there man is asking to first save him and then go have all the fun. Meanwhile, the old lady is there in the middle of the room looking up and apologizing for not being able to save everyone. She grabs her cloak and says it's okay. There was still a way to fix this, and maybe this item was created for this exact moment. Suddenly, she strikes the thing onto her neck, saying that with this, she can go back to the past, to the moment when everyone was happy. We then apparently are going to see her story from the past. An entire group was lost in that place without being able to find the way out. In one of the boxes that were there, someone was talking about the accident of monsters appearing all over the world. The situation, called the Cataclysm, was a national crisis. Any person who came into contact with an unknown creature, it was better to flee to a safe place. While the message was being transmitted, suddenly, a skeleton beside them rises with a sword in its hand. Right away, they are sure that's what the message was talking about and they start running, but a poor girl falls on the ground. A skeleton comes to strike her in the back, but in 1 second, someone stretches out their hand and tells them not to run. If they stayed there, he could protect everyone. Hold on a second, so it was never an old woman. It's a guy called Labyrinthus, right, who has the spatial distortion ability. And back in the present, he's screaming up at the sky like a madman, saying that all he has to do is protect them there. He vanishes from 1 second to the next, shouting that he doesn't understand why no one comprehends him. I don't know what's going on with this crazy guy, but our boy's friend is being saved there by the rescue team. He was complaining that our boy just told him to go, but suddenly the ground got kind of distorted. Or rather, the ground that's on top is his ceiling. Our boy tried to attack, but it was too late. They were blocked. And strangely, the spatial passages were also blocked. The only option now was to keep walking toward the center. And the fool of a friend is saying that from the beginning he wanted to help our boy, like he was really going to climb that rope and leave him alone. Up top, however, obviously the group is wondering how they're going to save the boys, when suddenly someone shouts for them to get out of the way and blows a hole in the ground with an explosion. Apparently, it was the crazy Ari from League of Legends who's happy that at least Hei-yan is okay. She explains that our dear Sang-woo was trapped with a fool called Jun-young. Ari answers that she has no idea what's going on, that they have to quickly get rid of the person who has this ability before too much time passes. The problem is that she doesn't have the ability to open a spatial rift like that. When Hei-yan asks what she's going to do, suddenly Ari gets real close and says that she's going to take care of it. Man, I had forgotten that Hei-yan is wide-hipped. While they're having that little chat, our boy is advancing with the clones and beating up the skeletons. At least he has a map to know exactly the path he needs to follow. This way he's gathering the clones who are passing the connections to see if they can slowly join together. The problem now is that the teleportation seems different. Instead of being something random, it's clearly spreading them out intentionally. Suddenly, Hei-yan speaks telepathically to him, saying that he just needs to say where the person causing this is and she will send an attack in that direction. He's a little confused, but she just tells him to hurry because she receives special training. Then he asks if number 6, who's right next to her, knows the map perfectly. He says yes. He then tells the clone to make a perfect calculation of the direction he is in, to the deepest point and then to the center. The clone, with perfect math, just replies that it's okay. Meanwhile, the old man is there in the middle of the room going crazy, saying that his ability had never failed before. Back in the past, this guy is smiling, saying that it's perfect, they have a labyrinth controller right next to them, they would never get lost like that. A little boy is kind of trying to leave the room, goes out at the same moment and gets thrown back in. And the old man is going crazy, crying and saying that he had to protect everyone. He appeared in the middle of the group, saying that he brought the survival items for the week. They wanted to know how it was outside, and he says that as always, it's very dangerous. Then the people thank him, saying that it's thanks to his ability that everyone there is surviving peacefully. The guy keeps going crazy. My God, this guy going back and forth through the future is messing up my narration. Stop it, man. Stick to one timeline and settle, then go to another. Some little girls in the past say they wanted some flowers. Meanwhile, the old man says that everyone there owes their lives to him. But here we are back again in the misery of the present. At least it's with the clone of our protagonist showing up, helping Hei-yan descend an attack somehow. Man, she seems to have fired a laser there that goes through the skeletons, goes through the whole dungeon, and hits the guy's chest dead on. Man, seriously, who needs a sniper with that? What is that? Look there, even the old man is in disbelief with his hand on his chest. Obviously, we're back to the past once again, right? When you returned there and everyone was dead. Obviously, he who was trying to save them got confused, called for Hugo, for Lovey, for Chloe, but well, right man. With 16 swords stuck in them, I don't think they're going to answer. Actually, just because I said that, Marcel there with the 16 swords stuck was kind of responding. He sees on the wall a bunch of hand marks as if they had tried to scratch their way out. He's walking back and forth, seeing the bodies and noticing that the structure of the place was changing on its own. It's when he reaches the center of the room, puts on the crown, and the skeleton goes to attack. He makes a crying face saying that soon he would see all of them. And in the end, I barely understood this guy's story right. I don't know if they wanted to move me emotionally, but it didn't work. And finally, Back to the Future one last time, at least I hope. Our boy is looking around, wanting to know if the place was over. It seemed that the spatial distortion had suddenly stopped. As soon as the clones confirm it, he already runs toward the center. In another place with the guys there wearing necklaces with a star, someone asks if it isn't dangerous to let the 7th criminal be released like that. The old man tells the story of what happened with the labyrinth guy to those guys, right? About the thing of him trapping people, trying to save the people outside, but then they ended up being killed because monsters appeared, because it seems like the labyrinth kind of collapsed. Basically, he tells them everything they already heard, right? He thought it was impossible for the labyrinth to return to normal. However, the short-haired guy asks what would happen if he took that drug at UGRP and amplified his stats. Maybe, with enough strength, he could control the labyrinth once again and things would go back to normal. The crazy guy is staring at the star in his bloody hand, when suddenly, our boy appears behind him throwing a punch, saying that he finally arrived in the middle of this mess. Obviously, all the clones arrived together and he says that now they'll finally see the face of the bastard who caused all this. The guy stands up and looks back, sweating cold. Man, I thought he was going to turn around like a full-blown villain. However, when the guy says that he should have died, the people get a little confused. The guy with blood coming from his mouth says that it's his fault. He is the one to blame for making the monsters that were once trapped there be released into the world. And it's also his fault that all the people who were there before died. At that, Sang-woo understands that all the skeletons in that place aren't monsters, but people who died. And the crazy guy says that his greatest regret is that this distortion, which he had no idea about, activated that day. Back in the past, just when I had celebrated, when he put on the flower crown and the skeletons attacked. He was ready to die, saying he would soon see everyone. But suddenly, a strange blue aura surrounded his body. We're back to the present, with him saying that even though he killed everyone, his desire to survive was stronger, and his body ended up acting on its own, bringing him to the center. However, he now wants to return to that day. Since his ability has been restored to normal, maybe he will be able to do that. He's throwing his arms wide while everything around is collapsing, and he says he's hearing the voice of the master telling him to stop. But even so, he says he would accept it once again and asks for forgiveness. Just like our protagonist, I can only think that this guy isn't right in the head. And our boy warns that he won't let the guy release any more creatures like this. However, suddenly a magic circle appears under his boot and his foot is pulled backward. It seems like it's the work of that bastard who crouched earlier pretending to fix something. Our boy thinks of this whole complex plan in his head, but in the end, he just does a backflip, throws his shoe into the air and lands normally. But then the crazy guy says it's time to release the seal. Before he could understand anything, an energy explodes, breaking the sky, and a while later the guy is floating on top of the platform. Man, what is that? Did he turn into a melted skeleton? Man, now he really turned into the final boss, oh boy. And obviously, Sang-woo immediately realized that this monster was more dangerous than anything he had seen before. Ah, I get it. Actually, the guy didn't turn into it. He broke the seal of this creature, a monster of unknown ranking. The guy turns to our boy and says he's going to give him a reward. He could take the bell of the 7th crime, or crime of the 7th bell, or 7th crime bell. I don't know, but what I know is that it's that monstrous thing there apparently. The guy says goodbye, saying that his time to leave has come. And he's crushed together with the entire room, which is sliced in half. The system tells him to run and grab the 7th crime bell, which I'll never know exactly what it is, but he grabs it there, right man? And in a second, he's in an empty room. Obviously, he's wondering what happened, especially because he was just in the catacombs. When someone behind him says that they can finally meet. Confused are Lucas, Sabina, and who's the person talking? When the system window says it's because she had only been communicating through it until now. Ah, you rascal, the guy's going to meet the little system? Whoa. And the guy introduces himself as Liber Ziemston. He was obviously the creator of the system. Man, isn't that Liber the guy Raven wants to kill? Oh, now it's complicated. So our boy's system is the enemy of humanity? Dang man, that's messed up. And he tells Sang-woo not to worry, no matter how much time they spent there, only an instant would pass in the real world. Obviously though, they couldn't stay too long there either, or his brain would be destroyed by information overload. Sang-woo then tells the guy that if he's that Liber, then he's the person who caused the Harvest Day and the death of millions of people. Adjusting his glasses, he says that's debatable, but yes, he created the system that caused that. Confused, Sang-woo asks why then he sent messages as if he wanted to stop something like that. Liber asks him to calm down and says he never lied. The goal from the beginning was to stop the harvesting that would happen on Earth. Sang-woo says that he destroyed Tiber, so it doesn't make sense, But Liber just said as that wasn't his intention. Besides, when all of this was over, he should take a look at the research that would have all the information. Sang-woo then asks why he created his system as dangerous as that. After a second of silence, Liber speaks. The system was created because a person he loved caught an extremely complex virus, and he thought that by creating an extremely intelligent system, he would be able to create a cure for it. Sang-woo wants to know what happened to that person, and he says that person went to a world where there's no pain. At least that's what he wants to believe. He says that our boy doesn't need to hide anything because he understands his feelings better than anyone. And just like he must know, the system had already gotten out of his control a long time ago. No matter where it existed, the system would be destroying everything, and it could only be stopped by the 7 deadly sins. Ah, the sins of the bells, right man? Not Nanatsu no Taizai. Sang-woo wants to know why that is, and Liber explains that it's because only with all 7 together can you leave the system even after having been registered into it. First, they would block the system's interference with the person's body. And the second effect is that when you gather the 7 bells, the system is completely absorbed into your body and you gain enormous power. Sang-woo man says that clearly there must be some problem with all this because the options don't seem bad at all. Liber answers yes, and that obviously the system and the sins would try to take over his body. And that's why he had to stay focused and not get lost in all that power. Our protagonist wants to ask something about the system interference, but he's starting to get a headache. Liber says that his brain is already reaching an excess of information that will be absorbed all at once, and he tells our boy to trust in that item, which would help in the fight against that creature. The mission he had to keep in mind was about how to stop the system, and with that he's back in the middle of the dungeon with everything falling apart. The friend takes a look and says they urgently need to escape from there. The creature was creating a black orb in its hand, and they are sure the monster that was on a completely different level. The energy starts floating upward, creating a bunch of lightning throughout the dungeon and lifting the entire place. Dang man, the rocks are falling, the hunter's being crushed, and our Sang-woo doesn't have much he can do. He then asks if that divinity buff from the friend lasts half a second. Junyeon answers yes, but says he hopes he's not thinking about finding something like that. They needed to hide and wait for the help of some stronger hunters, but our boy just ignores what he said. He tells all the clones, except for number 1, to help the hunters not get killed. Holding the so-called 7 deadly sins in his hand, he says that somehow this is going to have to help. The moment he breaks it, a black orb appears in front of him. Man, he sees himself being possessed by a giant yellow eye, which asks who he is and whether a new body has arrived. Suddenly, the protagonist is on his knees on the ground, agonizing with energy coming out of his body. In the background, Junyeon has already hidden and is watching, trying to understand what's going on. He remembers previous transformations and knows that this was very similar. The golden-eyed monster says it will give him what he's looking for, but he would have to surrender his body. Man, Sang-woo mutters with a villain-like smile, saying that this thing is really on a completely different level from before. Now this was real power. He's almost going mad, saying that if he surrendered his body, maybe he would receive even more power, which would be amazing. But suddenly, he stops for a second, and remembers that Liber said he had to stay calm and not let himself be corrupted by the power that thing would give. His expression changes, and with a weird smile, he says he was too confident thinking this would be easy. The eye, however, wants to know why he stopped and warns that resistance is insignificant. Veins popping all over his face, Sang-woo tells the bastard to shut up and says he's not going to take his body. Remembering when he was in the hospital all messed up, he says he's had enough. He shoves the sin item into a clone's mouth, man, and says that he's not trusting himself anymore. He's going to let the clones handle this like always, man. Junyeon is in disbelief and asks how he has the nerve. But Sang-woo says the clones have way better mental resistance than him, so he'll let them deal with it. While the two are there arguing face to face, the boss is just watching from afar. Suddenly, he stretches his hand upward and a spear comes out of the orb. Right away, our boy knows, man, that power's coming. But what the heck? The clone got angry. The system window says it can't even identify it. The system couldn't confirm the identity. The billion errors pop up on our boy's screen. A force installation has started. Man, the clone is radiating a purple aura as the big skeleton launches the spear at him. Sang-woo knows there's no way to dodge and the explosion happens as always. But when the smoke clears, the buffed-up demon clone had caught the attack. And the demon says he has no idea how long it's been since he breathed fresh air, asking if Sang-woo is the challenger. Clearly, looks like number 1 lost the fight to the creature, but our boy didn't win. The buffed clone did. Now that I did the math right, 7 clones, 7 sins, maybe the story is developing in that direction. And clearly the clone looks insane, right? Like it's not the clone anymore, and it asks who this number 1 guy is. What the heck? It tried to punch Sang-woo. Actually, not tried. It did punch him and sent him flying. Sicko Sang-woo is now remembering what Liber said, right? That they would try to take control of the body. And only now the fool realizes the obvious, that the creature took over number 1's body. The monster tells the challenger to get up, while our protagonist is freaking out that this bastard already has way more power than his clone had. The The guy charges, saying now the real fight has started. The problem is, Sang-woo is now trying to defend against these attacks, while there's another much more important monster that he had to deal with. That's when he realizes that everyone there, the clones, are kind of similar to him. Suddenly, he locks eyes and calls out to the legendary creature. He says that this is all a misunderstanding. He's just a simple clone. He points to the side and says that the really strong person controlling all these bodies is that one over there, obviously pointing at the big skeleton in the room. Number 1, possessed by the demon, asks if that's true. He says yes, he's just a simple clone and wasn't even the one who threw that spear. In the background, Jun Young is thinking that this damn Sang-woo is always going to solve things in a dirty way. And Number 1 completely fell for the trick, saying that it's fine then. He doesn't care who the real challenger is as long as he gets to test his strength. Our boy is there celebrating that somehow he escaped this fight. What he has no idea about is whether that guy will actually manage to beat the boss. Number 1 rushes toward the skeleton, dodging the attacks. He prepares a punch and lands it square on the skeleton's chin. Our boy celebrates until the skeleton slaps Number 1 straight into the ground. That's when the boy's expression changes. But man, once the smoke clears, he's back on his feet. In a second, a purple flash smacks the skeleton's face. Number 1 says that it looks like this little game is going to be long. He charges again and the brawl starts once more. Meanwhile, the rest of the hunters are fleeing the dungeon. Haeyum is starting to blame herself, wondering if everything that's happening is her fault. But obviously no. She did her job incredibly well. Still, it was undeniable that things were way worse than she imagined. She tells Sinan to help the rest of the students and calls in more support from the hunters. Now that she no longer had to worry about everyone, it was time for her to go back to being a hunter. Meanwhile, Number 1 and the big skeleton are still at it. Sang-woo is impressed that Number 1 is so strong he can't even see the attacks they're exchanging. But that Number 1 takes a hit to the arm and dislocates everything. He starts getting angry, saying that this damn body he received is way too weak. The skeleton was prepping more orbs, but he just slices them, saying this is getting too cliche already. Man, the skeleton took an explosion to the head. It was dear Ari, who pressed Q on the keyboard and wants to know where the rest of the clones are. Sang-woo senses her presence, but in the same second, tells her to get out before she gets attacked too. Man, she tries to say something, but Number 1 is already behind her. Blood splatter everywhere. But of course the scene changes again. Never seen an author who likes jumping timelines this much. In a bar, a guy is saying that this dragon's breath stuff is way weaker than he imagined. He throws the bottle against the wall and asks for something stronger. Then a guy appears behind him asking if he still wants to drink, even looking that messed up. The blonde guy says it's hard to find a drink strong enough to get an S-rank drunk with the resistance they have. That guy is John Scully, and he wants to know what Jumper is doing there. The so-called Jumper approaches and says he's gathering some S-rank people. Apparently, there's a creature about to show up in the catacombs, or maybe it already has, and they need to save the people there. John Scully tells him to handle it alone, but Jumper says that if he tries, there will be a bunch of casualties. Then he says that if John helps, he might finally get a drink that could actually get him drunk. Suddenly, the guy activates his aura and asks if he's sure. Back in the middle of the catacombs, man, the blood that spilled, strangely, was from the demon's arm. Looks like Number 1 sort of took control of the other arm and blocked the attack with his own. The demon is screaming and telling him to stop resisting, that it's all useless. But suddenly, he slaps his own face with style and says no, he's Number 1 and no one commands him except the master. Suddenly, Sang-woo reaches Yara and asks what's going on with Number 1. She says it's a long story while the guy is trying to resist the transformation. The demon in the right eye admits it. The loyalty he possessed was impressive, and for now, he would leave. But he wants to see how they're going to handle everything without him there. And that's it, man. Number 1 really did get taken over, but came back to his senses. He's the real deal. Sang-woo celebrates while wondering if he was being brainwashed or what. Before he could answer, the boss starts approaching from behind. And our boy says that if Number 1 took control of the body, he better be ready to handle it. But, of course, the clone just replies that there's no way. The monster is attacking and they'll have to flee. Meanwhile, back at training, Raven is explaining that the explosion of the mana core is his secret ability, something that was only passed down to descendants of elemental blade users. He doesn't teach that to just anyone, but he didn't have many options left. The boy learned way too fast. First, he had to gather as much mana as possible into the center of his body. Then Raven would manipulate that mana to create a new circulatory system. He warned to be careful. If the mana was used incorrectly, it could damage his organs. Then the guy places his hand on his back and says they're going to start. Back in the cave, everyone is fleeing man. Meanwhile, R wants to know why the clone that was fighting just suddenly ran. Neither Sang-woo nor the clone answer. Our boy asked another clone how the rescue mission is going. As soon as the guy says they're finishing the evacuation, he orders everyone to regroup. And the clone squad is marching again toward the boss. At the same time, Ari is using her E, that charm thing, right? Basically hypnosis. In the skeleton's head, it looks like a skeletal bride dancing. Apparently, it's the distraction. Who said that even after death we don't still have some desires? But his little fantasy is soon interrupted by a stab from the clone. Obviously, it doesn't do much, and another clone is coming from the side. But one of the clones used the freeze ability automatically. Seeing that, they use the order skill, so everyone does the same thing to stop the monster from moving. A bunch of ice blocks are starting to form on the skeleton. Even our boy is using the skill. But suddenly, the ability seems to bug out. He has no idea what's happening, and Ari goes to ask what's wrong. And then she gets slapped on the butt, I think. Man, even though he did that, I'd say this boss prefers girls a bit skinnier, nearly skeletal. But we humans like meat, and poor Ari is getting beat up nearly to death. Don't do that. There aren't many of her in this series. Obviously, our Chad is going to step in to protect her, asking if the director is okay. That's when suddenly, he feels his heart beat stronger. The center of a storm wave was activating. Out of nowhere, all the clones are unleashing those cuts that slice through the void or sound or whatever it is Raven taught. The boss is starting to break apart completely, and everyone is confused. Sang-woo wants to know how all the clones suddenly learned that. Obviously, it was Raven's doing, and the clone training with him says he feels like his mana center exploded on its own. Like his heart was freezing, cooling down, spinning. It's madness. It seems that's exactly what's happening, and Raven is impressed that his senses were really that sharp. He explains that the secret is transferring that energy into the blade. Of course, it's dangerous to go around doing that since it's a risky energy transfer. But before Raven can finish explaining, the clone just waves goodbye and jumps through the portal, saying he has something to handle. With that, the poor teacher falls to the ground, saying the boy deserves more than this man. Then a portal opens next to him and someone else appears. Back in the fight, the skeleton is getting wrecked, and finally the blades are doing real damage. A clone from the training shows up apologizing, saying he was over at practice. When someone goes to ask if he had anything to do with this, he immediately explains that he learned a skill from Raven, and that's why everyone is able to deal damage now. Obviously, the problem is that they couldn't keep this technique active for long, and man, everyone's arms are already twisting, breaking, bones are snapping all over. And even worse is that the boss was regenerating from all the damage they caused. Seeing that regeneration, Sang-woo knows that if this doesn't end fast, it's never going to end. The clone explains that the secret is to speed up, right? Do the heart thing and at the same time transfer energy into the strike. Our boy just nods and already jumps into slash. He tries to land a clean hit on the skeleton's hand while apparently channeling the heart's energy. The problem is, he's not perfect like a clone and totally misses the timing of the explosion. And now the boss is once again summoning a bunch of orbs on his back. But another clone comes in from the side and smacks him in the chin, and another comes in from behind and hits the nape. Since the bastard had good regeneration, they had to hit faster than that. The creature, however, lets out a roar, and Sang-woo looks frightened. From the black energy bubble, a strange blue eye appears, and Sang-woo is sure that the only way to block that is with subspace. Man, the orb starts exploding in all directions, and the clones and our boy all get pierced through the middle. That's when suddenly, a flash of light appears in the sky. Ah, you rascal, Professor Raven has arrived. Not only did the guy teach the technique, and now he's come to save them too. What a beast. That's a true teacher right there. And from brought in was George Lucas. I mean the one nicknamed Jumper because he can create portals and jump through them, the guy in the white cloak. Also with them are John Scully and the mustached guy Charles Dian, all of them S-rank hunters. Seeing the creature forming the giant eye, they ask if this is the monster of the day. Jumper, seeing that it's an undead, says he understands now why he was called. Suddenly, Raven calls out to him and asks for help healing someone. The guy, however, replies that it doesn't seem to be fatal and wants to know if Raven, by any chance, knows who that kid is to be so worried. When Raven confirms, and as he's about to say he'll heal everyone, he notices they all have the same face. Jumper walks off, saying he'll focus on saving the rest of the people since he's not really good at fighting. As for the creature there in front, well, the others can handle that. Sometime later, our boy wakes up wondering where the injuries went. John Scully says he healed him and that it's best they leave before they get in the way. Man, he turned and left the two fools there without saying a word. Ari is smiling, saying that now for sure they're safe. The three in front of the creature were S-rank hunters. Man, even the boss's design in the end turned out sick, huh? He's really intimidating. Raven takes a glance and tells our boy to stay close, take a look, and learn how it's done. Man, he already jumped at the boss and said that this is the path he needs to follow. Suddenly, tornadoes rise up from under and over the creature. All around the area, several portals are opening thanks to Jumper. As always, the story loves to jump around, fight, then another place, then back, then elsewhere. Never wants to finish a scene properly, damn it. And strangely outside, Jumper says this time things were different. The Titan skeleton woke up much earlier. He was already in his second form. Maybe the labyrinth creator was ineffective, but if that were the case, the city should have been way more destroyed. The only variable he doesn't understand is that group of hunters where everyone looks the same with a dumb face. It's unbelievable that they managed to push the Titan skeleton into the second form and still rescue people at the same time. If that's really the case, one of the 7 deadly sins must be with those hunters. Either way, to him, this was as entertaining as it was mysterious. Ah, cheeky one. Do you have future info or something? Are you privileged, man? Back in the fight with the Titan skeleton, the beast is surrounded by tornadoes and taking hits from all sides. He even dropped a rhyme like Eminem out of nowhere, and Nelson Menino was impressed by his power. Mustache Man says the Blade Seeker is impressive, but he also wanted to get some hits in. The old man used the Dragon Claw strike and a bunch of swords came flying into the tornado. With that, man, when the move finished, the monster was full of holes. But even then, the damn boss was still attacking. John Scully, however, defended with ease, saying that this guy really was tough. Against this type of monster, the easiest way is to start blowing up the head. With a single snap of his fingers, a green laser shot out and the creature's entire head really vanished. But obviously, it wasn't going to be that easy, and the eye moved down to the chest and the creature started regenerating. Back to 100%, the monster was about to attack when, suddenly, an entire building falls on its back. It's the guy with the future knowledge saying that the core of the monster is that eye and you have to hit it directly to kill it. John Scully says he aimed for the eye, right? But clearly, as soon as the monster vanished, the eye reappeared somewhere else. Off to the side, Sang-woo tells Ari that he's going to help the others, but obviously, she says that's insane. They were S-rank and he wouldn't be able to do anything. But our boy suddenly turns into a philosopher. He says that even though he had these guys helping him now, as time goes on, he won't be able to count on them. So he needs to be able to solve things on his own. At the very least, he has to become strong enough to face that creature by himself. Ari, towering, wants to know if he's out of his mind for even thinking of doing something like that. Meanwhile, our boy calls out to Jun-young knowing he's just hiding somewhere. At the same time, he says the clones already know what to do. Our boy gets ready to activate Berserker. On top of that, he was going to borrow the strength and abilities of all the clones. While he's in the middle of transforming, the boss is attacking John, who's defending with ease, saying he's not going down that easy. The 3 S-ranks jump at the monster doing the tornado slash. The mustache guy flies by attacking, but the eye dodges every attack and remains on the creature's chest. That's when, from the corner, Sang-woo says the time has come. Jun-young says he's going crazy for trying to combine sanctification with that berserker power. That's his divine buff, man, the one that makes the person insanely strong, but only for half a second. And our girl is in full swag mode. Angel wings, halo on the head, the berserker's hand flying in rage. At the same time, Ari is using hypnosis, saying that if they get mad at her later, he'll take the blame. Man, I thought she used hypnosis on the monster. But nope, she hypnotized the guys. The gunman starts seeing beautiful weapons. The blonde guy sees mannequins dancing. What kind of trip is that? Drunk John is seeing tons of vodka, and strangely Raven is seeing Ari, but in a bunny dog costume. Damn, my guy's into furries? That's jail time. While those fools are all hypnotized, the protagonist charges toward the eye. And of course, backup is coming right behind him. The creature's core seemed to be concentrating once again, but our boy lands a clean hit right in the middle of the chest. Suddenly, a billion status windows appear, and the system says he's absorbed the stats of the Titan skeleton. As always, guess what? The scene completely changes. A girl with a veil on her head says that a thread of hope had appeared. An S-rank hunter strong enough to interfere with the gears of the system. And look at our boy's stats. Strength went from 72 to 91, stamina from 68 to 90. In other words, the boy is tanky as hell now. Obviously, on the ground is the boss, bloodied and destroyed. But even though our boy absorbed the stats, his body is exhausted. He falls to the ground and Raven comes to help him up. But it seems the guy immediately noticed that something changed in the boy's aura. He had gotten much stronger in just a minute. Right away, he deduces and tells the boy that he must have a skill that makes him stronger after killing monsters. Sang-woo, spooked by the bunny-eared old man, admits the guy's sharp and just says yes. Meanwhile, the rest of the S-rank hunters admit that the kid is even better than they expected. At that moment, our boy goes to ask how Jumper knew about that place. But the guy completely ignores the question and just compliments our boy, saying he did a great job. Truly a promising and heroic hunter. Our boy says he knows very well that he's Jumper and introduces himself as Sang-woo. Strangely, Jumper seems startled and keeps repeating the name Sang-woo to himself for a while. After thinking for a bit, his expression changes and he says that's a name he's never heard before. Our poor boy thinks he's being dissed for being a nobody. Little does he know this guy in front of him is probably a time traveler with future intel. The guy then wants to know what's up with all these hunters that look just like him. Seems like a really close family. Our boy explains that they're his clones, which he just sent to subspace. Jumper says it's a shame they're already gone and suddenly invites our boy to visit his vacation house. The protagonist, obviously, is confused, but the guy says that after killing a monster like that, it's the perfect time for a party. They had to eat, drink, and celebrate. Yeah, okay then, nothing odd about this guy. Meanwhile, back in the villain's chamber, one of the guys shows up to deliver news. The boss thinks his plan went perfectly, but the guy just reports. The labyrinth creator is dead, the catacombs were destroyed along with the skeletal titan. A bunch of S-rank hunters showed up, and one of them even took the 7th deadly sin. The boss's heart skips a beat for a second. Scene changed to a fancy party where everyone is wearing suits and looking sharp. There are reporters and everything. And in the middle of it all, there's poor Sang-woo standing there. And obviously, with Ari nearby in her tight dress and bunny ears, the old man who likes animal girls is hanging around. Nothing peculiar about that guy. But just like there are things this guy likes, someone else approaches our boy Sang-woo. It's Hae-yeon asking if her little dress looks okay. The guy, man, he swallowed his breath, not knowing what to say. All awkward, he mutters that she doesn't look too bad. The poor girl, embarrassed, stumbles to say it's the first time she's worn something like that. Like a proper nerd, the first thing he wants to talk about is abilities. He wants to know how she pulled off that laser that smacked the boss. But before she can answer, the old man shows up, asking if he got along with the ability the clone learned. He had taught enough on the first stage for them to make good use of it. Sang-woo thanks him and says yes, the clones learned it well, and it helped a lot. Sang-woo then asks why he hid the clone's ability from Jumper. I hadn't seen it, but I went back and saw. Back when Jumper asked where the people who looked like the protagonist were, Raven pretended they were just some other similar-looking hunters who had already left. In other words, he hid the fact that our boy is the protagonist. Sang-woo asked why, and Raven says he has a weird feeling about Jumper. He's known the guy for a long time, but it's impossible to figure out his intentions. In theory, he seems to want the good of humanity. He's always leading rescue missions, killing monsters, and all that with minimal losses. But at the same time, he's the person who started the Awakening program for all of humanity. And he probably already knows what happens when they reach a certain point. Obviously, he's talking about the Harvest Day where everyone gets butchered. Raven says the guy will probably find out soon, but it's best to keep the clones hidden as long as possible. He was on a totally different level compared to hunters like Bless and Charles Dien. Bless being John Scully's nickname, the healer guy. At that moment, Bless is just looking for a decent drink. But unfortunately, he's already tried everything. While he's lost in his thoughts, a clone is just standing there staring at him out of nowhere. Obviously, the guy gets startled, asking if that's one of those dudes with a bunch of twin brothers. In the middle of all this chaos, suddenly Jumper appears, thanking everyone for coming and saying he hopes they enjoy the party. As they probably know, they're all there to celebrate the defeat of the Titan skeleton. Everyone is thanking Jumper for the low number of casualties. But Jumper says he has something to say about that. The person who reduced the catacomb casualties so drastically wasn't him. It was another hero. And then the guy says the name of the legend is Sang-woo Jong, the Korean hunter who was the most important person. He led the rescue team with his body clone ability and risked his life against the monsters. Raven, yeah, he's there all impressed that the guy already figured it out, but let's be real. Everyone literally knows our boy is the protagonist. It's not exactly rocket science. And man, Jumper is already saying that the boy is strong enough to become Korea's first S-rank hunter. The group would make a huge contribution for him, erect a statue in the catacombs, and a bunch of other stuff. Obviously, everyone wants to know, all restless, who this Sang-woo Jong guy is. But our boy is kind of missing. One of the reporters opens the doors to a warehouse, and inside there's our boy taking Bless to the portal, asking for help to heal his little sister, saying he even licked the sole of his shoe if it meant saving his little sis. The guy begs him not to do that, but look at him already going down toward the man's foot. But of course, all the reporters catch that very peculiar scene, while Bless says his image is going to be ruined forever. Sometime later, we see that old guy from the association saying that because of all this, they have no choice. They're going to have to make an official announcement about Sang-woo, and he tells that mustache guy that he's going to have to host the kid's ceremony. Man, the poor guy gets thrown to the floor and gets up all crooked. The mustache one says he's in a tough spot. They were partners, and he was already risking a lot just by keeping him around. That's why he had to provide a regular supply of DEP, and he better know that if that doesn't happen, he'll end up disappearing. At that moment, his phone rings. When he picks up, it's the president of the association calling for him, saying that unfortunately, they're going to have to announce to the public that Sang-woo has reached S-rank. The guy, however, replies that he won't accept it. He wouldn't let them announce that someone reached S-rank in Korea before he did. The old man says he understands, but unfortunately, the catacombs were declared S-rank, and Sang-woo was the one who landed the final blow, so there's no more hiding it. The guy, though, says they can just give the justification that he was assisted by a bunch of S-ranks. All they have to do is push that narrative and not give the boy the title. Man, it seems like this guy really has power, because the old man is kind of going along with it and says, fine, but they have to come up with a backup plan. The nutjob says he has an idea. They should send the boy to Africa, the biggest disaster zone for hunters, a place with so many S-rank creatures that if he comes back alive, he'll be undeniable. The old man, however, says that if he really does come back, then yeah, there won't be anything they can do to stop him. Meanwhile, over at the World Hunter Association, the guys found out that the Korean Association isn't going to announce Sang-woo as S-rank. The bearded one on the right says it's weird. Most nations do the opposite. As soon as someone becomes A rank, they're already calling them S rank out of nowhere. Jumper, however, says to let them do whatever they want. The Korean Association had been corrupt for a long time anyway. It wouldn't be a surprise if they exploded from the inside out any day now. The crazy guy is all red in the face, puffing, saying he's eager to see who survives, the association or Sang-woo. Go figure it out, he says. Tell someone to ask Korea what they want in order to recognize the boy as S rank, then walks off, saying he's got some villains to catch. In the newspapers, they're asking if the bootlicker is going to be Korea's first S rank. His friends are cracking up while our boy is in a corner, completely devastated. Raven, though, is already offering up a big old boot for him to lick too. Ari then comments that even with that photo, it looks like things didn't go well with Bless. Our boy says of course not, that was his decision. With that, we see what actually happened when the reporters suddenly asked what the deal was between the two of them. Bless activated his divine body and went through the portal, dragged our boy with him, jumped out another window and told him to follow. Sang-woo says that's why he wanted to get out of that place full of reporters, but Bless immediately